Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired! Ambulance en route.
Welcome to this channel. This channel is all about learning how to prepare for when the dark times come and the grocery stores are stripped bare. And this channel is also about prepping for those dark days while still retaining our integrity and our honor. And today we're going to delve into the topic is if the government is going to target preppers during or after SHTF or not. So I've had my channel for about 3 years now, and something that I see on a regular occurrence is that a lot of preppers out there think that the government is going to be coming after them during and after SHTF. And that's because they think that the government is going to want their food and or their firearms or whatever. Some preppers even believe that government agencies are identifying preppers from the internet and making note of their home addresses. This way that if SHTF happens, then they can raid that prepper's home. And some also believe that if SHTF happens, that roadblocks will be set up and all preppers will be rounded up and put into imprisonment camps as enemies of the state. So let's just take a look at how some of this stuff works and delve just a little bit deeper into it, and let's use this information to come to an intelligent conclusion. And let's first take a look at the subject if the government is making a list of preppers off of the internet or not. Now, it's no secret that the NSA has all kinds of computers and servers running that just captures just all kinds of information in which they can in turn spy on us with. Now with that, I can tell you this, the NSA or even the whole federal government, but they don't have enough employees to read every email or watch every video or read every comment, etc. So what they do have is they use algorithms to decipher who they need to pay attention to and also who they can just ignore. But let's use me as an example. I have this prepping channel, which some in the prepping community says makes me a target of the government should SHTF happen. Now I've said this before in other videos, but I'll say it again. I conceal my identity not because of the government, but I conceal my face so that I am not recognized by a nut job on the street that may recognize me from one of my videos. While the vast majority of you are good, sane people with intelligence, I do have the occasional nut job stumble across my channel. And those are the ones that I know about because they leave a comment. How many that stumble across my videos and never leave a comment is something that I'll never know. First, for me to get the attention of the NSA's algorithm, I need to be talking about how to make or stockpile explosives, or talk about how to overthrow the government, or talk about how to kill a bunch of people, just stuff like that. And then once that algorithm puts a red flag on my video, then the NSA has to get a subpoena or a search warrant or whatever for my IP address to then find out who I actually am and where I live at. And just let me say this real quick. As a detective, I have served search warrants on IP addresses in child porn cases and stalking cases and stuff like that, so I do know how this process works. But if I do nothing or say anything that would violate the law or make the government think that I was out to overthrow the government, whether it's under Trump's administration or Obama's administration, but all that information from my channel just gets crammed with billions of other data in the NSA servers. Now, supposedly the NSA has quit that collection of data that flows across the internet and people's cellular calls, but who knows if that is true or not. But folks, the government just doesn't care about a small fish like me. My food and ammo that I have, it's just a speck of sand to the government. The reality is that if SHTF happens, the government is going to be going after food warehouses and fuel depots and stuff like that. The amount of manpower that it would take to raid my house and carry out my food and stuff, by the time that was split up between everybody involved in that raid on my house, suddenly the amount of food that would carry my family for a full year just wouldn't be worth the risk and the effort from the government. And we also have to consider this too. We have a ton of terrorists that want to cause mass casualties on US soil and on US interests abroad. We also have truly violent groups within the US that want to violently overthrow our government. We have groups that are so communistic that they even think that Obama and Bernie Sanders were greedy capitalists. We also have groups and even splinter groups of the Black Panthers and the KKK and Nazi skinheads that want to cause violence to races of people that they dislike. And we also have a lot of nut jobs that walk around us, nut jobs that don't belong to any group, that are just mentally sick people who post online about killing people and causing mass casualty events and the such. Folks, this list goes on, and these are the type of people and groups that the government is actively watching. They just don't care about people like us that aren't wanting to hurt other people. And then we also have to consider this: when things really start breaking down, the government is going to be dividing its attention among several different things. First, it's going to have to be paying attention to all the protesters who's going to be tearing things up. Trust me, when society starts failing, there's going to be a lot of angry people who are going to be upset about utilities not working, food not being shipped to the grocery stores, government benefits being stopped, people losing their retirement investments and pensions, etc. Then the government is also going to have to be paying attention to all of the radical groups out there that will want to take advantage of a weakened government and the chaos just to further their agendas. And if you don't believe me, start looking up just how many communist parties actually exist within the United States. And then look at how many of these groups are calling for the overthrow of our government. But when society starts failing, groups like these are going to start committing violent acts and attacking the government. And then, like I said earlier, the government is going to need to secure places like food warehouses and fuel depots. And they're also going to have to secure the pipelines and other ways of transporting these things to Washington, D.C., right? Folks, dealing with protesters across the country and dealing with violent groups that want to overthrow the government and protecting food warehouses and fuel depots, it takes a ton of manpower. That means that every cop and soldier is going to be getting sent to hold back protesters, or watch city centers to try to keep bombings from happening, or hunting down groups that want to blow up government buildings. And just think of the amount of manpower that it would take to stand guard 24 hours a day around all of these food warehouses and fuel depots across this country. Folks, I just don't believe that the government will have the manpower, even if they wanted to try to raid preppers' homes to get that little bit of extra food or ammo that a prepper has put back. In roadblocks, I definitely think that you'll see them, but you'll see them in major city centers. You'll see them in areas where there are a lot of people and where mass casualty events could happen, or where there's a high likelihood that a violent group will try to attack. They're just not going to be setting up roadblocks specifically looking for preppers. And they can't lock down every single road in every single town and city across the USA. And we also just have to realize that the government is made up of people from our society. And just like every other group of people that work in any other industry, you're going to have some of them that will actually be preppers themselves. And then you're going to have a few that have never even heard of preppers. And probably most of them will just think that preppers are just wacky people because of what they've seen on the show Doomsday Preppers. So I just don't think that there will be any commands that will come down from the government saying, lock down the roads and look for the preppers. And here's just another big consideration to take in. When things start breaking down, when fuel starts becoming scarce, that's usually coupled with the government going broke. And when the government starts going broke, cops start getting laid off and their squad cars start getting parked because the government can't afford the fuel for their cars. Now, at first the government will start putting 2 cops per squad car, and then they'll start putting cops on bicycles and on foot, but then they'll start laying cops off. And if things get dangerous enough, you'll have the remaining cops that just plain won't report as commanded to the riots in the downtown government centers. They're just going to stay home, they'll just stay in their neighborhoods to try to help keep their neighborhoods and families safe and protected. So even in today's good times, the government already can't keep tabs on every violent group or every violent person because they just don't have enough manpower. Let alone when they also have to deal with massive riots and a general meltdown of society also. And then you add into the mix that when they would actually need even more cops, and then they've had to lay off most of them, or they've just stopped reporting for work, suddenly you should now see that the government having a target on Bob the Prepper is actually pretty ridiculous. So with anything in life, you always have to remember the risk versus reward factor that almost everybody in every government employs in their decision making. I mean, which is the government going to be more concerned with? Will they be more concerned with food warehouses with tons of food? Or Bob the Prepper who has a couple of 100 pounds of beans and rice? Or will the government be more concerned with the massive riots going on at its downtown government centers? Or will they be knocking down Bob the Prepper's door so they can drag him off to an internment camp? And will the government be more concerned with a violent group that wants to overthrow them when things start breaking down? Or will they be more concerned with Bob the Prepper as he's heading to his bug-out location? And will the government be more concerned with keeping ammunition plants safe and running to keep feeding them with ammo? Or will they be after the couple of cases of ammo that Bob the Prepper has put back? Now here's who I would be more worried about after SHTF, which would be neighbors in local government. I'm talking about your next door neighbors in large cities. And then if you live in a small town, then I would be worried about your neighbors and also everybody in society that makes up your small town. Everybody from the small average person to the local police department and all the way up to your city board and the mayor. So in the larger cities, the cops and the government are going to be more worried about keeping the city centers from being blown up by extremist groups, along with getting burned down by riots. So you, being Bob the Prepper in the larger city, will easily be able to be lost in the crowd, so to speak, and easily be able to fly under the radar. So big city Bob the Prepper's biggest concern will be his neighbors wanting to forcefully take his food, and also gangs that may be raiding and burglarizing homes in search of food. But Bob the Prepper who lives in a small town, in a place that's not having riots, in a place that's going to band together to keep dangerous outsiders out, these small towns may adopt a everybody pitches in so we all survive type of mentality. They may also adopt a food isn't being delivered to the general store so we need to start community gardens and every able-bodied person is expected to help out type of mentality too. You'll probably also see a we must keep dangerous outsiders out of our town, so we need able-bodied people to help patrol the perimeters mentality also. And the big one will be that they may also develop a all food in the community must be gathered and put into a community stockpile so that we have a better chance of survival as a community until our gardens start producing food. So it won't be the state police or the feds that come knocking on big city Bob the Prepper's doors. It will be his neighbors demanding food or thieves waiting to cut his throat in the middle of the night. And it also won't be the state police or the feds that will come knocking on small town Bob the Prepper's door because Bob the Prepper posted comments on a prepper website or a prepper YouTube channel. The people that's going to come knocking on small town Bob the Prepper's door is going to be his town board and the local police officer and some neighbors who have been deputized, for lack of better words. Those are the people that will come knocking and wanting Bob the Prepper's food to be put into that community stockpile. So folks, that's just another reason why I don't let the general public, not even my neighbors and my regular friends, know that I'm a prepper. I am not the least bit concerned with the government or those entities that have the ability to monitor the internet or cell phone traffic. My concern is with the non-preppers in my immediate vicinity. And I just want to clarify something. When I mentioned about how the local cops in smaller towns and cities could possibly be involved in food confiscation, I don't think that they would be trying to be evil or trying to intentionally be violators of the Constitution. I think that they would be just another product of that society. I think that you'd have pretty much everybody in a suffering community thinking on a community level. Everybody from the plumbers to the electricians to the shopkeepers to the barbers to the school teachers to the cops and all the way up to the elected mayors of that small town. Basically what I'm saying is is that everybody in that town will probably be all for making a community stockpile of food, except for the preppers who actually stockpiled all of their own food. Now, before some of you go screaming at me in all caps and typing in such a frenzy that it makes it difficult for me to even read what you're saying, I'm not saying that I agree with it. And in fact, I don't agree with it. I believe that those who fail to put extra food back when times are good should not have a right to a prepper's food. All I'm doing in this video is giving you something to think about and to suggest that you should possibly redirect your thinking that the big government actually gives 2 cents about you, and to know what you may actually have to plan for should SHTF happen. Now, some of you will ask about the possibility of UN soldiers or military units being used to do door-to-door confiscations or herding people to prison camps. And I really don't take too much concern with that. First, the UN and their soldiers are mostly jokes. And if the USA suffers something catastrophic enough, then it will probably have either ripple effects in other countries or maybe even major effects. So many of these UN troops may be too busy trying to restore order in their own countries if a major SHTF event happens inside the USA. But even if they aren't too busy in their own countries, there's still not that many of UN soldiers, at least not enough to lock down the entire United States of America. Basically, to keep this short, I think that any military that's used during SHTF on US soil will only be able to lock down parts of major cities and patrol major highways. Personally, if things get bad enough that UN soldiers or any nationwide deployment of our own military that happens on US soil, that things will be bad enough that some countries that don't like us might see this as an excuse to occupy US land. So if you live in a big city, how do you plan to keep your neighbors from finding out about your food? And how do you plan to protect yourself from marauders and thieves from killing you for your food? And if you live in a smaller town or community, how do you plan to protect your food should a group of community members eventually make it to your house as they're going door to door collecting food for that community stockpile? And I'm sure that the community will have probably already decided that there will be a heavy penalty for hiding food from the rest of the community. So would you just give up your food? Or would you already have a majority of your food hidden and just turn over about 3 days worth of food like most people have already on hand? So comment below if you're comfortable with commenting, and don't if you're not comfortable. But let's just see if we can get some good ideas from the prepping community. And here's where I'd also like for you to comment down below with, do you think there's merit to what I'm saying? Or do you think that I'm fooling myself and that the big government is actually planning to target preppers? Either way, please articulate why you have your stance. And folks, I know this is going to be a bit of a controversial topic. I just ask that if you do disagree with me, that you simply state why you disagree. And if anybody starts using profanity or is just rude, I'm just going to delete the comment. And if you'd like to see how you can have an option for cooking off-grid for only $20, a link to a video should be appearing in the upper right-hand corner of the screen just about now, so you can learn more about that. And after SHTF, yeast for bread making won't be available anymore if the store shelves are stripped bare. And the yeast in those little packets also don't have a very long shelf life, so you just can't buy them and put them into your food stockpiles either. So to learn more on how you can make your own wild yeast from your stockpiled wheat, then click on the video that should be appearing on the right side of the screen just about now. Anyways folks, if you made it this far, hey, thank you very much for watching, and I pray that you have a good night.